So this is my 1987 Toyota Land Cruiser. I might just show you guys around. Either way, I bought this one about two and a half months ago. I was going to buy an 80 series. Well, that changed after I found this truck on the market for an extremely or relatively good price. Now, it's not in perfect condition, but it's well worth it. I have lots of time. I clearly have the space and the tools to repair and restore whatever is necessary. Now, the lights aren't on in the shop right now. I really should turn them on. So as I said, it's an 87, so it has a 4.2 liter 2F inline 6 engine with a reasonable interior minus a couple spots like this and some minor cracks in the dash, but again, very minor. I think there may be one right along the speaker box. Nothing major. So, a couple cigarette holes from where the smoker of the vehicle had, I guess, dropped their butts. Door panels are in amazing condition. No stains, no rips. It goes with the rear. Small stains, but nothing out of the ordinary. She had one black dog, a Great Dane, and his head, the top of his head would hit right up here, and we had a whole bunch of little black hairs just all around the top of that. But the rest of it's in extremely good condition. So, tailgate surprisingly in good condition. Some minor rust around the latch mechanism and the button. But when I bought this, I mean, I've repaired lots already. The rear wiper arm wasn't functioning. A bunch of lights weren't working. The radio wasn't working. This is all nice and rusty as well. See that? I do not have license plate lights because the wiring and those bezels are just completely destroyed. But on a good note, no rust on the tailgate at all. Like, none. No rust. None on the pinch seams. None on the hinges. None around the sills. I'm under the impression that somebody in the past has done some body work to this. It was in one collision on the right side of the vehicle, all along. I guess they repainted from here all the way to the door, and this is actually a different color than this. I don't know who had done it, but they, didn't do the greatest of job. Small things like this too. The stitching has just come ripped off. That's pretty typical, being such a thin material. And yeah, this is a whole pile of extra parts, and I'm not going to get into that yet because that's for a whole nother video. So still some things that do not function, I would say, is the rear windshield washer. This is a bag style with the motor at the bottom. I have two spare bags and motors, so I'm going to try to fit those. I can get them brand new from some like Cool Cruisers, but they are expensive. I think they're about $150, and then you got to consider in shipping and the fact that it's American, and I am in Canada, and everything to ship here is about, an extra $200, so depending on what it is. Minor bubbling, nothing crazy. This is all really minor rust. All stuff I'm going to have repaired, because this whole vehicle will end up inevitably being repainted, just because in the light, you can't quite see it, but these are two completely different colors, or not completely different, different shades. They're not, in the sunlight, it's very obvious. Again, some very minor bubbling around that spot in the window, but everywhere else, It's just perfect. All the molding's in great condition. So I will put this up in the air. You'll be able to have a good look at it. But for being 1987 and somewhat untouched, a lot of this has not been touched. Like, the wheels are still in reasonable condition, but there's some rust around where the seams are. Pretty typical. Again, those would have to be completely reconditioned, but in my case, I am not that in love with these, even though they suit the factory look. This truck is going to have a, well, we won't get into it. There's going to be some changes. But for now, let me just set you down for just a second here. I'm going to open up the hood. There we are. So when I first bought this thing ran beautifully actually. It fired right up, leaks a little bit of oil. It sat for only 4 years, but in the time that the person owned it, they had, just let it sit and get neglected, and didn't have any money to fix it and fix some of the, it still drove, but it had quite a few issues. So you can see the rats had made it their home for a while. I found a nest that was inside of the intake. That's now since been cleaned out nicely. You can see they've chewed out a bunch of areas like this and whatnot. But everything else, rubber-wise, at least I haven't chewed through all these hoses, because there's a lot of vacuum lines on these Toyotas, and a lot of little switches, actuators. It's so much controlled by the vacuum system that it's a little ridiculous back in the day, but this is how they did it. So instead of everything being electronic like it is now, or actuated. But the rest of the vehicle, the tappet and push rod cover is all, well, that's leaking a bit, and so is the oil filter housing. I converted it to R134A, and shortly after, the compressor the seals have failed between the compressor housings, so I can get a complete rebuild kit for them, because this brand new, coming from the United States, is almost $1,000 my cost, and I'd much rather, like, the pistons and everything inside there, all the sleeves, I believe are in good condition. I think it's just the seals that are just leaking. They're old, they're crusty. I replaced every single O-ring on the AC system and recharged it. Actually, it did function. Like, the AC was working when I charged it, which is quite amazing. And because it was an R12 system, apparently the only, well, it's not the only option. I flushed the whole entire system of the old oil, but what can happen is if there's any leftover and you add in PAG or PAG oil, it doesn't mix with the oils that they used to use for R12 systems. So I ended up just using ester oil, which is compatible with old R12 and with any new PAG oil. So that's no problem. That's good. I also replaced, of course, the receiver dryer. I did not replace the condenser or the evaporator. They don't seem to be leaking, but I did replace, like I said, every single O-ring in the system. So the lady that I bought this off of didn't tell me a whole lot about it. I crawled underneath of it, and at the time I'm used to Toyotas, and I've been around the four-wheel drive vehicles for all my life, and my dad's an avid off-roader, and of course I work as a mechanic, so I see lots and lots of different types of vehicles. So either way, this vehicle has already had the spring-over axle conversion. Normally, from the factory, the springs actually sit underneath the differentials, and somebody had already done that. So this thing has an approximately 4-inch lift, at least as far as I know. I don't know what the factory ride height is, but this one sits quite a bit higher than that. It's already equipped with 33-inch BFG KM2s, and Yeah, it actually rides really good. There's a couple downsides to this, and I'll get to that in just a second. But when I bought this, it did not roll down the road. This trunnions bearings here, this side had completely come apart, and the wheel was basically not quite. It was almost falling off. It was pretty bad. So I completely rebuilt the front end. There's still a few things I need to do to it, but like re-gear it for the future, and I also need to change the pinion seal, and that'll all be done when I re-gear. So, anyways, also when I bought it, she said, the lady I bought it off of mentioned that it had a small little puddle of oil on it if you were to run it and park it overnight. Well, this might have been 4 years ago when it was a small puddle. When I took this around for its first drive after repairing the front axle, I had about a puddle the size of a dinner plate, just within 2 minutes of parking at the gas station. So it was a bit embarrassing whenever I went to go stop anywhere because it would just be dripping oil everywhere. So what I ended up doing, a bit embarrassing. I got still a little bit of an oil leak. So anyways, I've replaced and I ended up finding out that it was the rear main seal that had failed. But this also, the frame in between the rail and the spring hanger, that area right there, there's some small holes that have started to show signs of rust and such. Like right here is a good example of that. If my camera can pick it up. This side was a whole lot worse. When I originally got this vehicle, there was a hole probably about, I don't know, 2 feet long on this side of the frame, and it started all the way up here and went all the way down to here, and I ended up replacing this complete side of the frame. And now, of course, I've coated it as well, so it hopefully will not rust, at least from the outside in the future. But you can see it's really nice on the outside. This frame should last me a little while longer. But the rest of it's all in good condition. The exhaust isn't falling off it. It has a full-size spare. My rear drive shaft angles aren't too bad, which is again fantastic. The only other thing to mention is so again with this spring over axle, what I found is that the front drive shaft angles are way off. So what happens is that right now even, let's grab my light again, right now even, you would not be able, I can't even turn this front drive shaft for 2 reasons. It's hung up on the cross member, and this is not even at full droop yet, like, which is not ideal for my off-roading needs. So of course, I'm going to be ordering a custom drive shaft. It's a double cardan drive shaft from Tom Woods Driveline down in the United States. They can ship one to me Canadian for about, I believe it's $500 to $600, which is fantastic. So the other reason this will not turn is because even just not even fully bottomed out, this is contacting here, so the yokes aren't even, just bind very badly. So there you have it. That's the underside. You know, it has oil leaks still. There's some oil leaks from the engine. There's some oil leaks from the transfer case. All this is going to be gone through, and I'll get into more of that because there's big things. I have lots of parts lined up for this. I've already fixed a few small things because I am planning on driving this off-road very soon. Like this diff breather wasn't connected, and I know if I hit any water crossings, that will not fly. So it's had a bunch of what looks to be, Rancho shocks put all the way around. I'm not a big fan of Rancho shocks. I'm also not a big fan of these boot bellows, and the reason being is when you're off-roading, the silt still gets in here, and and does not come out. So it damages the seals on the shocks and you can't clean them properly. So I get rid of these almost instantly. I still need to do that actually. It's the simplest thing and I haven't done it. I need to get rid of these boots because like I say, the silt gets in there. It doesn't wash out of these wheat poles and you can't clean them. Like 90% of the time I just end up chopping those off. Again, for body rust, all the mounts are in good condition. Every single body mount on this thing is solid. Like there's no rust on the floor pan. Like there's nothing I have to replace on the floor pan, which is really great. I mean, not to mention it's covered in oil, so it's doing its job. You know, the oil's doing good. It's keeping everything from rusting. The only spots that I do have where it's a bit rusty is in and around the fenders, the inner fenders, right here, which isn't the body mount, down here, and there's not a hole in this one, but there is one on the other side, which I will be repairing before my trip.